go ahead and get this started. Sure, will Chris will be here? Text. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if you'll take roll call of voting members of the Building Grounds Committee.
Angie Schreiber,
Here.
Kristen Mettmiller, Andy Mary,
Here.
Jake Laderman,
Here.
Dr. Julie Sprague,
Here.
Danny Pyatt,
And, Kristen should be here. I have not heard anything, so we'll,
she's just leaving work.
okay. So we'll move on.
Do we want to do like the ball field or do we want to move?
Well, first we'll go to, is there any public comment?
No.
Okay.
Maybe we could skip A, we could probably do B and C. Those are
Okay.
like fairly easy.
Okay.
The Delaware lot inquiry, we had a resident contact us, ask us if we were interested in selling. There is a letter attached that explains their point of view on it, I guess. My interest is, or my opinion is, there's zero reason why we would ever consider to sell that lot, but, they asked a few years ago, I kind of shared that opinion, and then they asked again, so. I'd bring it here and see if I was incorrect, but, I don't see any reason to sell it. We use it for access to Schofield Stadium lot, primarily during the football games or any sporting events or any event there. That's our main access for ambulance. Park's right there. It has a drive-through gate that can get right on the field. All the other entrances would typically be met with a lot of pedestrian interference. So it's really nice to have that gate to get right there.
Years ago, it seemed like they parked on the east end of Schofield Stadium. Is there a gate down there, or did they just do
This
that?
is on the east end.
Oh, this is the east end. I thought this was
Yes.
the west end one. Okay. So it's something that's been happening for years, and it's very convenient for that. Okay.
Also, when we did the HVAC and electrical upgrade at West Elementary, we did come through that lot with underground service for the three-phase electrical, which came in handy and saved us a lot of money from having to build three-phase around the block.
So there's wires buried in that lot,
Yeah.
like on the lot line, or right in the middle
They're,
of the lot?
no, they're more towards the lot line, towards the south line, if I remember correctly.
Okay, and when we talked about building onto West at one time, that lot was part of the deal, right? Buses would come in one side and go out the other.
Yeah, that would be very, very beneficial if we ever expand or change anything on the backside of that existing building. That lot would be pretty pivotal.
If we're gonna do any of that, so.
Okay. Is the homeowner here tonight or no?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. I just wanted to see, in case they were here, if they wanted to say anything.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see this, like you said, it would be critical to have this as a piece of our property if we ever to build onto West. So selling it would not make any sense to the district. So, would you agree?
I would agree. So I mean, I'd say we wouldn't move this on to the board or anything, it's just.
Yeah, I don't,
We'll just reply that we're ball field agreement, this is just every year through the agreement with us and the city to use the listed fields around. You know, there's some that have been like crossed out because they don't need to use them, so they've updated it.
Do you know what the 1,900 goes for that we pay the city? Do you know what that goes towards?
In general, it's the maintenance. You know, they mow it, they rake it, they lime it, they have the facilities there for us to use, whether it's bathrooms or garbage or whatever, you know.
Okay,
Just a little bit of money to help maintain the costs.
okay.
So whenever we're planning, or we're not playing games on these fields, are we? Or do we play
Yeah.
games?
Yeah.
Are these for practice or games?
It's for both.
Both.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact schedule or how many.
But anyway,
times
they
use
line
them.
it up, they line the lines and everything, and do the infield.
Yeah, as
And
much as I know,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's some parents that go home or something that I'm aware of, but.
Sure.
they're-
Booster clubs or
and
something.
For
Okay.
all practicality, they're ready for us to play.
Okay.
Okay. So since this has a financial impact, this would be moved forward to the board then for approval. The other agenda items will wait till Kristen gets here, but we can discuss further about the roofing situations that we have that Andy brought up before the meeting started, so.
If they're not on the agenda, you can save them for next month.
True. Yeah, we could do that, if you want.
Yeah, I'm sure Jake's aware of it.
Yes, I've toured the schools. I would suggest that you do the same. And actually look at
Toward the
the,
high school, yeah.
no, the high school and all the elementary schools, actually looking at the actual buildings and the roofing and the insulation and the nitty-gritties of everything. It's quite interesting,
Yeah, I'm pretty aware of it, but once in a while, I think they just give Jake a hard time.
so. Jake, do you like getting a hard time?
Not especially, but
Yeah.
when it comes.
Goes
to
with
our
the job.
When it comes to our
Yeah.
buildings, there's certainly enough to be desired, so.
Can we go on to the winter project? Is there,
I think we should wait for Kristen for that, especially since she was one of the major, one of the board members that really wanted to push it through, so I'd like to wait for her on that. She said she was just leaving work.
Facilities task force meeting, although Danny's not here. I wanted to say that for the dates that we had picked for a board retreat, it didn't come out cleanly that most board members could go one or the other. And in fact, I don't think Dave and Danny could go, if I remember correctly. And as officers and the drivers of this task force, I thought,
they couldn't go to either one, or they couldn't
I
both
think
go to
Danny
one?
could go to one, Dave
To the
did
other.
not indicate, I don't think.
So are you selecting a new date?
Well, those are the ones that worked for Brian Bailey, so I was hoping to get an update from them on their task force tonight.
What are we all going over there for? I mean, it seems like 9 of us are going over there, or 10 or 12, whereas opposed to he could come here and talk to us.
I think we were under the impression to kind of see how they have their partnership set up within the YMCA and the school district and the Boys and Girls Club, how they all were kind of,
Right. Tour was
Commingled.
one, and then
Yeah.
just to see if it generated within the board, you know, any information moving forward with the task force, so. But again, if they're assembling a task force and they're not here tonight, I don't know what we would cover for letter E.
I just wanted to keep this front and center and make sure that,
Right.
you know, if there's stuff on here that is being asked of me or anyone else on the administrative team to be prepared for, that we,
Well, I know for sure that we're going to want the floor plans and the sizes. And I know we've talked about that in the past,
yeah.
and that can be somewhat challenging
Right.
to get. So yeah, that is going to be one thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can provide that information. I mean, like, you know, you look at the high school here, I mean, I could give everybody a copy of the blueprints
Right.
and
And
do that, but I don't know that that's really what you're wanting, or is it, or?
yeah, but not in probably in layman's terms, not blueprint form. You know what I mean? So like everybody can read it and understand it, if that makes sense.
Do you want the dimensions of every single room and space?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. I don't know how far I can get that down to layman's, but.
Yeah.
I'll try.
Instructional spaces, or like you thinking kitchen and non-instructional too, like custodial closets, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Also non-instructional. Yep.
Yeah, are you looking at like we have 20,000 square feet that we use for custodial? Or are you literally wanting to look at a picture and be able to see that this room is 9 foot 6 feet wide?
Yes. So what I'm envisioning is, say you've, like when I've gone in and remodeled homes, right? And we've gone in and rehabbed, you have this room and we have this room, and you look at, and you try to envision, okay, can we add, if we take out this wall, what will it create, right? But if you can't just give me, we have 20,000 square feet without knowing where load-bearing walls are and all that kind of stuff. I need to know like where logistic things are as well. Does that make sense? Yes, no, sort of?
I'm understanding what you're describing. I don't know. I'm trying to understand the outcome that we're trying to achieve.
I'm trying to be able to provide as much information so we can have as many possible ideas from this, because we don't want it to be just geared towards this outcome or this outcome. We don't want blinders on. We want to bring together a task force that is of, all different ideas are on the table.
Yep, no, I get that, but when I provide you
Hi.
the document, you know, you say you don't want blueprints, you want it in layman's terms. Like there's HVAC, plumbing, electrical that have implications to whether you can change a wall or not. I mean, are you?
Right.
You're wanting, as a task force, to look at every wall and decide if we can move the plumbing within it?
Yes, no. I guess, okay, so I guess, I understand what you're saying now. So yes, I guess it would have to be
So
the
like,
blueprints then, yeah.
You know, if you went back to like how Bray
But
kind of
if they
breaks
were
stuff down,
updated,
you know,
yeah.
and we can, you know, build off of that, but as a starting point, what Bray does is they look at how many square feet we have total in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Then they do an analysis on, you know, how many square feet are we using for regular ed, special ed, support staff, if you want to call it that. That would, you know, athletics or things of that, you know, and that would just break down the square footage so that we understand what we're dealing with.
Mhm.
And then that's how they generate, like, their capacity.
Okay, that's not what we're looking for, I don't think, in my opinion.
Okay.
We're trying to utilize what we have, our current space that we have now. We're trying to utilize that in the most efficient way that we have. How I understood the Bray assessment is to come in and try to utilize it as the best practices. And that's not feasible.
We don't want best
That
practices.
is what we had board members say,
Well, it's
though.
not feasible.
I point at you, when you just walked in. But
Yeah,
I
I'm
do
here now.
recall that at our last board meeting as
Mm-hmm.
part of moving forward, so that it was I think the term was like educationally sound or modern, something indicating that we weren't going back or just remaining status quo. We had to update so that it,
Well, we have that. We have what they, if they say we need 30,000 for whatever class, for example, right, square feet. We have that in the ideal world, yes, but in whatever class, whatever, building, we have to know what we can work with. You know, what room structures do we have? What load-bearing walls do we have? Where are they? Like you said, where is the HVAC? Where is the plumbing? All that kind of stuff. So that we can shift things around if we need to in order to remodel and rehab.
I'm just curious how many rooms here at the high school are not getting used at this time?
We don't have any classrooms that are not used or smaller rooms.
Janitor's closets.
No, they're still getting used for janitorial stuff, but I mean, as far as like occupiable rooms for people. We don't have rooms that are not being used. We maybe have rooms like this room is not being used first and second. Oh, no, it is being used second or just by a different group. So we may have some rooms that are not being used all day long. For example, if I'm a English teacher, I might have first and seventh hour prep.
Yeah, and that means some other teacher can come in there carrying their supplies. Is that correct? Because they won't
Correct,
be keeping
but
them
that is not
because it's not their room.
best practice.
Right.
I mean, in theory, we could.
As someone who did that in the early 90s, that is, and our elementary, as you know, still do, and it's tough.
Yeah, yeah.
I just dated myself.
You know, so when you talk about the most efficient use of the building,
Mhm.
you can interpret that a lot of ways. You know, you
True.
can say, I want somebody in this classroom every hour teaching. Well, yeah, it's not the most efficient thing to be doing. Even though-
That's one way to look at it, yes. That's not how I would look at it, but yeah, you're correct.
Yep. Yeah, there's different ways to look at it, so,
Mhm.
and that's really what we'll have to decide.
Right. I think we should be looking at, in my personal opinion, now this is not the board's opinion, but this is my personal opinion, the most effective use of space would be providing ample space for teachers to be able to teach effectively, students to learn effectively, and have safe environments to work and teach in.
Well, I mean, within those, though, I mean, I bet you ask the 9 board members, I bet you we get 3 or 4 different answers.
Correct, yes, yeah.
So I'm just being honest with that, I don't know how I can provide accurate information if there's 3 or 4 different opinions on what.
Well, that's why I think if we
The
give the
building
floor
should be
plans,
used.
that's just what they are. That's, the building space is what it is. And then that, as the task force, is what we're gonna have to figure out.
Right, but like when we go back to the conversation that we had with Clint from Bray,
Mhm.
and he did just the elementaries just to start with, and we spent a lot of hours, you know, me, I had Julie and Amy, Heidi, and Tim sit in on a meeting to try and just figure out, okay, just at the elementary, how do we break this down and diagnose it so it's accurate? And it became very clear that, you know, we need to start with that elementary piece
Mhm.
before we start looking at the middle school and high school. And that's when we got into the conversation about how they design a building for today's standards and compared that square footage to our square footage now, and I mean, it's not even close.
Well, no, you're comparing apples to bananas.
Right, but
Yeah.
isn't the goal to have apples, not bananas?
Well, right, but if we're not looking at building a new school, we're looking at trying to see if we can utilize our
Well,
space
you're-
more effectively.
You're making an assumption there.
Right, but if we can't, if there's no feasible way, then at least we can go to the community and say, we have exhausted all of our
Mhm.
options.
But I think part of the
That has never been
strategic
done.
planning has to be to decide what we want to look at.
What's
I mean,
standard?
do we want to go out to the community and say, what do you think about this idea? If we,
Well, that's part of the task force. Community
Uh-huh.
could be part of the task force. We're asking them to be. Would you agree?
I would agree that it's part of the task force. I don't
Yes.
want to get too committed to, we're not going to build a new building.
Yeah, that's not off the table. That, all options are
Okay.
on the table.
Just want to make sure
Yeah.
that's.
I just want to make sure that we look at all the options. Because as the referendum has failed how many times?
Yeah, and it hasn't run in a long time. There's a new board here who has a lot of influence in the community, so.
Yeah. So, I think it would be important to have a discussion on who we want to have on the task force and make sure that we have these skilled people on the task force as well. So meaning construction people, that have project management skills, things of that nature. I mean, we have good people, that are well-known in the community that want to be on the task force already, but we also need to have people that have critical skills as well.
Do you have an update on anyone who's signed up for
I
this?
have 2 people.
Okay. And Danny knows of those two? Okay.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be, can we, are we in agreement that we're staying at the elementary level to start? Like, that's the most critical piece of this, and then we'll build up from there? Or,
It is, well, and you have the blueprints for the high school already, because this is,
right,
I don't want to say new, because it's 30 years already, so. But the elementary schools are going to be the most difficult floor plans for you to recreate. Excuse me.
the middle school is probably gonna be more difficult,
Okay. So, yeah,
because I mean, those go back to the 20s.
okay. So the middle school and the elementary, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the elementaries are.
just so you have enough time
pretty
to,
better, but,
yeah.
okay. Right, well, I will bring back floor plans of the elementaries next meeting,
Okay.
and we can continue this.
Mm-hmm.
So we can put facilities task force update on next.
Yeah, that should be probably a continuing
Right,
agenda item.
I mean, are we envisioning discussing some of this prior to taking this to a task force?
Discussing,
Well, some of this, I mean, what standard are we aiming for?
I'm not sure what your question.
Are we looking for all best practices as recommended by Bray? Or are we gonna start drawing stuff out ourselves and going that route? I mean, I'm
In
trying
the
to.
task force.
Right.
That's going to be up to the task force.
Okay,
Yep.
well, I'm just,
Yep.
if there's information that I need to have Bray compile or I need to
Yes, I will,
compile
yep.
and have ready for them,
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's information that we should get together as a school board before
Okay.
we start this task force. And to
I think like major
get that
issues.
information,
I think major issues would probably be good to have on, as a list on hand. So like, for example, the boilers at the middle school, the one is from the 1960s, the other one is from the 1990s. And their efficiency rates, stuff like that. That would be a good piece of knowledge. Same with the roof systems in all the elementary schools and how the gap, that 2-inch, basically hole in the roof all the way along the roof line is causing major problems at all locations.
yeah, and I can talk through those issues.
Yeah, but that's gonna, those pieces of information, I think, are gonna be critical tidbits for the task force to also know when they're looking at these buildings.
Okay.
I think you need to aim for best practice, because if we start shying away from best practice, where are we going to end?
Right.
where we are right now.
Status quo.
Exactly. So I think
Right.
that everything should be best practice. This is what is expected for education today, and this is where we're at. So how, right,
I would agree with that.
sorry, I sounded really firm, but that's
No, I-
how, yeah, how are you gonna tell your kids that they don't deserve the best?
Mhm.
And if that's not something that the task force decides upon, then we go from there. But if we already start shying away from it,
And that's fine. But again, if we do decide to go the route of going for a new school referendum, then at least we have a group of however many people that are on this task force that can also go out to the community and be advocates for this new school and passing the referendum, because guess what? They've been in it. They know the ins and outs, they know what's all the wrongs, what's the details of everything, because that hasn't happened in the past. We were just told, we need a new school because it's gonna cost too much money to update, that's it, that's kind of where it got left. And the community was like, what do you mean? We didn't know the details of everything, so it was hard to get the community buy-in when the community is brought in at the last minute. It never works. It never works.
Hold that thought.
Well-
Because there was plenty of information given out, but you are giving a good example of how hard it is to put information out there,
Mhm.
to have people digest it.
Yeah,
So it's not that there wasn't information there, it's not that it wasn't put out, it's the communication didn't happen.
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you
So
have to have a
there's huge
very,
step you want to take
Yep.
compared to previous referendums, and that's to communicate to the community.
yeah. It can't be just throw it out there. It has to be an actual, almost like a marketing plan, if you will. You can't just free-nilly.
Right. and
Toss it
that-
all.
That goes back to, are we bringing a facilitator on board?
That I'm not 100% sure of. We'll have
Danny
more.
had indicated yes, but I don't know where that's at.
I don't know either. I know you had talked about having somebody from Neola, I believe, but I don't know if there's a cost associated to that.
WSB.
From WSB, okay,
Ben Neal's.
okay. I didn't know if there was is there a cost associated?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm prepared, but
I know we don't have a lot of
Right.
direction to give you right now, so more information
I
is
can
better
talk-
than
I can
less.
talk through any of the problems that we have, but to create documentation that shows, the one example we have from Bray. If that's not what we want to stay with, because I felt like that's where you were kind of leaning as possibly not going with like a calculation form like Bray would generate. I don't know how.
So how do you, okay, so if we take that, how do you break that down into, how do you make somebody, anybody that's not in the world of education, how do you break that down so that they understand what does that look like in North Elementary?
Yeah, I think that's something that with the facilitator and Bray.
Yeah,
they could-
because
they could
he
come
just
in and
gave
have a
us
conversation and
Square footage, that means
Well, yeah, but
nothing.
He has he has spreadsheet after spreadsheet behind that. He
Yeah.
literally has, for bathroom space for sped, you need 60 square feet or what,
Right.
I'm just making stuff up, so don't quote me on that, but,
Right,
he has all that within his program.
yep,
But I don't know if that's very digestible for a task force of 60 to look through pages and pages of spreadsheets
no,
with abbreviations that he probably only knows, so.
yeah, no.
I'm just trying to understand what we're going to present to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure of that. I follow what you're kind of saying, I just don't know what you're wanting me to provide.
Okay, well, I know right now it's gonna be a big challenge to even get the floor plans and all that kind of stuff in place. So, I guess that would be where we start.
Did we have floor plans for these elementaries in a previous task force? The
Yeah.
building hasn't changed.
Right. But, yeah, that's,
We haven't.
we do have, Bray has a lot of information on that. I mean, they've been with us for years.
Okay.
But again, it's gonna be it's gonna look a little different. You know, it's not necessarily gonna be a floor plan with, this room is 16 by 24 written on that. I mean, it's gonna be a spreadsheet document that we can work through and sort and gather, and, I mean, it's nothing that I'm gonna be able to take from him and
Mhm.
present.
Okay.
You know, I have to get him to put it in a format
Do you have,
for us.
do you have the document of the floor plan of the, I would think we would have to have that for fire.
Yeah,
Any kind of
but-
emergency response is gonna have to have a floor plan of a building.
Yes,
So, you have it somewhere. Or the city does, or somewhere.
no,
Some,
I have floor plans of every building, but
Okay.
it's not broken out to show every detail that you were asking for.
okay.
What is it broken out to show?
Well, it shows just a box for a room, and it says, you know, this is first grade. It shows arrows with the fire evacuation plan, or a different one would show some of the electrical features or the plumbing. I mean, blueprints are very detailed, and there's
Well, okay, so
many, many pages.
what are you thinking that I'm asking for?
I thought that you wanted dimensions for every room, and then you wanted to see what rooms could be, what walls were load-bearing or had mechanicals within them, to know if we could move them or not.
Well, that could be determined by going on an on-site visit, which I'm sure the task force is probably gonna wanna do at some point, is to go look at these buildings in person.
So we can just start out with classrooms and dimensions in them. I'll bring that back.
And
and
the, yeah,
see if-
but I don't want just educational spaces. You would wanna have the,
Correct,
you know, the kitchens and the closets.
correct.
Okay. Okay,
All right, I'll bring something back for next meeting and keep working
okay.
on it.
Sorry if I made that,
No, I'm just,
okay.
yeah, we have a lot of information, and to make that in a very quick consumable document is,
Not easy,
right,
yeah. Yeah, we've chatted before about it, yeah,
okay. All right, I'll do my best on that.
okay. One question I had was, who's going to be, I guess, formulating the list of people to be in the task force? Are we just like putting the invite out there and then just hoping people sign up? Or are we like strategically going out and looking for people? Or are we assigning people to?
Danny shared a list that he had put together. He shared it
Yeah.
informally.
Mm,
So I think that's what he plans to work off of.
Okay,
And then I'm hearing we've had
We've had two
two,
people. Asked to be added.
right.
okay.
But I mean, have you sent out invites to that list that Danny provided?
No.
No, like, we need some guidance on that, right?
Mhm.
And this list that Danny has, excuse me, is that people that are going to be working to invite others, or is this people to invite to be on the task force?
I think this was people that he had intended to invite to the task force.
Okay. And who's keeping the list? Is that you, Mary Kay?
I have.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any other?
No, I just, lots of questions. If we're gonna be, I think he had in May that he was gonna start a meeting. I mean, that's like tomorrow in my book.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm getting nervous if I'm supposed to have all this information that I don't have a lot of direction.
I thought part of the deal of going over and talking with the people at the YMCA is that other things are already happening, and we really shouldn't wait until May to get the school in part of this whole effort. I mean, the Boys and Girls Club you know, either we're working with them or they're going ahead on their own, is that correct?
And if they're going ahead on their own, what does that mean?
I think they're gonna do a capital fundraising project to build or buy a new building.
Okay, and then they'll be joined to the YMCA, is that what I'm hearing?
Possibly.
Okay.
Well, it could be adjoined to the YMCA, but I'm saying if we put this off, they're just gonna go ahead. Why wouldn't they go ahead?
Right, yeah. No, I understand what you're saying, yeah. Yeah. So,
All right, we ready for the greenhouse?
Yes.
Ready?
I mean, we had a lot of information at the last meeting. You know, Shalyn and Mike and others shared a lot of stuff on the why. I don't think that's the question anymore. Katie shared her part on the funding. So here we are with bids from qualified people to do it. And our recommendation would be to approve and accept the bid from United Greenhouse.
Can you tell us where both of these businesses are based?
They're both within Wisconsin. They're kind of parts and pieces to all of it, so the biggest thing with United is they have a consultant that kind of comes for free. He's retired and just loves greenhouses and schools and everything about them, and he lives in South Dakota, does a lot of work on the West Coast, or East Coast. And he just loves greenhouses and schools and thinks it's the greatest thing. He's been here to visit our facility and help us out. And he gives out his cell phone number to me and Shalyn and Mike, and
what's the timeline that we're looking at
this summer,
this summer? Oh, awesome. Yay,
so.
okay.
Yeah, I only asked because if there was, you know, there's not much difference in these bids here.
Sure.
And if there were any implication for local contractors here, but that's.
They're
not the
both
case.
within Wisconsin, but none are in Anago or Wausau.
Okay.
Anything you guys would like to add?
Not necessarily.
The biggest difference between the two is the one we are recommending, all in-house. They do everything. They're not working with any outside contractors. The second one would be working with an outside contractor. So Carlin is the supplier, and then there's an outside contractor that does the work. So you have more people to be working with. So we want the first bid, the one that we're recommending, and we also have the consultant that will work with us.
Do they take care of the maintenance of the system as well?
No, the maintenance of the system is on my staff and Shalyn.
Okay,
You know, there's things that Shalyn will probably maintain every day. Anything beyond what she's comfortable with would fall to my staff to help with.
okay,
However, United is extremely willing to help troubleshoot, train, fix any problems that we're having. Like if Shalyn has a root problem, that consultant guy that just loves donating his time to schools will help her figure out why the root problem exists, if it's something within the climate, what
Okay.
they have to do to adjust the controllers. I mean, he is amazing resource for us to have.
okay. Well, we can't approve it at the committee level, so it'll have to be moved to, forwarded onto the full board, so we'll go ahead and do
Yeah.
that.
So we should move that on as recommended.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, big thanks to Shalyn and Mike and everyone else that behind the scenes was very, very helpful. And
I do have one question. What are you going to be doing with the, like the panels, the greenhouse panels that are currently on there now? What are you going to be doing with them?
the ones that stay in one piece, I'll probably throw in the dumpster and they'll shatter when they hit the dumpster.
Okay,
They're that bad.
they're that bad?
They're not usable. They are 15 years over their
Okay.
lifespan.
Okay,
You don't want to breathe on them wrong. So,
okay,
yes, no, they're all going away.
okay. Okay, so, and then windows.
Windows?
Yep. So Ray has some generated drawings. Obviously, they're their documents. I can't even edit them, which means I can't share them or send them, or do anything with them. They're their working documents, but they did put together just a little slideshow that'll throw up on the two screens. It's really just to get a visual of what they might look like.
Okay.
Nothing major, not looking for any approval or anything tonight, just want to get your take and
I'm gonna watch on the big screen.
give you an update.
Can't see nothing.
I was just leaving work. I'm like, why is she texting me? Just hit me. I'm like, oh gosh. I thought I was doing something good.
Didn't know if we could just wait a few minutes for you.
Yeah. I was on time for my 6:15 meeting.
Should we be changing the start time to 6:15?
No, it's when I just forgot. I usually skip my lunch and leave early, but I forgot today.
I'm sorry, I can't find the remote for the TV, so. So really the biggest thing that I want you to see is just kind of the layout and design of the windows. They're gonna be a slider type feature, is almost certain where we're gonna end up. We've looked at a few different options. But then just notice, kind of the balance of the window that's not window is gonna be that metal infill panel, that would be the brown. This is going to be a metal infill piece. More, the window would be up to the ceiling inside of the room, but then above the ceiling is gonna be where this darker area is. So that was the option that we chose. So they're all gonna be similar in structure that way. Again, opening back up to have 3 windows.
Is this the final layout?
What's that?
Is this like gonna be the final layout of where the window placement is going to be?
This is where we're at right now.
Okay.
Is there something
Well, I'm
that's
just-
jumping out at you?
I'm just curious as to why on the front left,
That?
yeah, that, and then on the other side, why,
There's
right there,
walls-
yeah,
there's
why?
walls- There's walls there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, why?
And
Who
that's,
decided to put the, it
that's,
just looks
we,
weird.
we went through and measured all the stuff, and there'll be a couple more on another one.
Okay,
I don't like it,
yeah.
so I'm gonna try and eliminate one, like some I know are just heating pipes, we can move those.
Okay.
We're working through them and trying to get rid of as many oddball things like that, but sometimes when you look at a wall, whether you can move it or not is
Sure, yeah, no, I
questionable,
get it.
so, I'm trying to get as many of those things eliminated as possible, but
Okay.
this is where we're at right now. More to get figured out, but, so this is what they call a clear anodized aluminum. It'd be a silverish type color. Nobody, I don't particularly care for it, but that just shows you kind of a lighter platform.
Is there a cost difference?
No. This is like a medium brown. And then more to a darker bronze, they call it.
Well, the 2 windows that currently have plywood over them, will they for sure be being replaced?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Every original window opening will either have a new window put into it or have the new metal infill material in it.
Okay.
There are a few places where there is like mechanicals, like in the tech ed area.
Mhm.
Some of those are gonna have actual exhaust fans or something sticking out of them. They're not on this generator drawing.
I
So
thought-
that's what I'm guessing, like right here, that window is probably one of them.
Okay. I thought we weren't gonna put windows above the doors. The very top.
These,
Yeah.
that's a classroom.
Oh,
That's off the second floor, that's a classroom.
okay. Oh, I'm thinking by the parking lot.
Oh,
That's what I'm thinking, sorry.
so you're saying these windows?
Well, no, on the opposite,
Opposite end, but.
north side of that section.
These windows or the side? I just don't have that angle.
Those, the middle ones. Yeah.
These? Yeah,
Yes.
we're replacing those as well.
You are, okay.
Yep.
Is that the same on the other end?
Yeah,
I thought it was
relatively.
all concrete. I was,
No, there is windows on the north end, I don't have that view.
When you say sliding windows, you just mean like double hung windows?
The single hung or double hung, yeah, we're still kind of looking through the pros and cons of the cost and what we can do on that, but, that's it allows more airflow than the crank out styles.
So what's the difference between single hung and double hung?
I had to clarify this to make sure I knew it, but, a single hung is basically the top piece is fixed, the bottom piece slides up and down.
Okay.
Or you can do vice versa if you wanted to, because we're talking about that as well with,
And a double hung, they both slide.
yes, double hung, they both slide.
now, the advantage of having a double hung is that you can slide it down and then they can pop in and you can clean them. So second
Yeah.
and third story, you can clean them from the inside. You wouldn't have to rent a lift or scaffolding and to clean them. Or hire a specialty
Cor-
window cleaning
correct.
company.
But there's still gonna be windows like those ones in the middle. Those aren't, those are just fixed
And,
windows,
and,
right?
and we have, some of them will be fixed windows.
Right.
You know, like
That's-
a room that has
yeah.
5 windows and literally the entire outside wall is windows, there's no reason to have every single one of those windows be operable. So it's going to be at least, so if there's 3 windows, at least 2 will be operable. If there's 5, at least 3 will be operable.
So either way, we have to have somebody up there cleaning windows. Is what you're saying?
Theoretically, yeah. Yep.
Do we have the equipment currently to do that?
No.
So we're gonna have to buy a lift.
No, we periodically rent a lift. You know, washing the outside of the upper windows, I know that we have not done that.
Okay.
This year?
Very recent.
Ever.
Probably, I mean, there's times where
Like
we've
maintenance of all?
had a lift and we've washed them. You know, when they did the brickwork, I had them make sure that they can wash them
They
off.
wash them.
Yeah, yep. I know that the guys have
Schedule.
opened some of them, and if there's, a bad film or something, made a mess on the outside of it, we've cleaned them sporadically, but, yeah.
Okay.
So, that's kind of the view. Any thoughts on color palette, if we want to go light, medium, dark?
Yeah, who's gonna decide that?
Well, we don't have to decide that for sure now, but if we're gonna go with more of a silver or more of a brown, I kinda need to know that family, because that's gonna tie into like hardware packages, stuff like that, to get those specs built for the bid. I don't necessarily know if there's any cost difference on, I know there's no cost difference on the windows, but when you start looking at any doors and hardware and stuff like that, sometimes there may be a cost difference, not necessarily one way or the other.
Have we ever, I hate to even ask this, but have we ever considered doing like either a staining or a painting of the brick to give it a more modern look than the dark red?
It's Anigo. It's
Painting the outside of the building?
Yes. Well, we can still keep our school colors, but like
It's
modernizing the
crossed my
building.
mind, I don't know what that cost would be. Kind of one of those more things that would be a want than a need necessarily on the priority list, but
Well, yes and no, it also helps seal in the soft Anigo brick. It also helps seal in the grout as well. So,
it also traps water and
yes. You have to
prep it and paint it correctly.
Yeah.
Can you go back to this silver hue?
I just think that that makes it look so much more modern, but then it doesn't look right with the red brick. This is my opinion though.
I like the silver myself, but I'm thinking, I don't work there, maybe we should let some people that work there decide.
And again, this isn't the end all, there's gonna be more discussion, I wanted to give you some update, and I thought maybe it'd be nice to see
Yeah. Let's
kind
get
of
into
some
those options.
renderings of what might look like, and what the differences could be.
I like the medium brown, Jake, in case you wanted my opinion. Yeah.
Cool, so we got a silver.
What did you want?
A silver, bronze, and the medium brown. Perfect.
That narrows it.
Got it. So, all right. No, we will get samples of the metal and really select that, as we get more into the construction part. But again, just wanted to just show you where we're at, what the window layout would look like, kind of give you some sort of snapshot on what it would look like outside.
Yeah, no, thank you for the update.
And for those who enjoy the technical side of things,
Are you referring to me?
yeah, yep.
You and me, Jake, for sure.
Okay, so there's a few kind of ways to gauge insulation value, things like that. One of them that they use is the U factor. The standard that they're using for this is 0.24 maximum, is what they have in this spec. And what that, in a nutshell, generally windows range from 0.20 to 1.20. The closer to 0.20, the more insulating capabilities. So 0.24 is very, very good. That's on just the glass itself.
Do you know when the glass was last replaced? Like, what year this was installed? These,
The majority of these windows are early 80s.
okay,
And they're single panes. I mean, there's two single panes with blinds in between, so they're not a sealed, like a gas-filled window.
sure.
So they're essentially a value of a single pane.
Okay. Okay. I know I just replaced all the windows in one of my apartment buildings, and it was built in 1994, that one was. And the tenants right away told me that they could see a huge difference in the new windows, so I can imagine,
Oh, some of these are from the 50s.
yeah, I can imagine what our energy savings is gonna be.
Yeah.
Now we just gotta get the boilers
Yep.
on par.
So, another number that they gave me is, now this one gets way above my pay grade, I guess, I don't know. SGHC, which is the solar heat gain coefficient, and it's a big equation, and they tried to explain to me how it's all factored. Got a little complex, but at the end of the day, the values are what matter. We're gonna be at 0.29 maximum is the spec on that. And sorry, I got two things open. I'm sorry, I can't find the page that I had open explaining this one. But it's also on the most efficient end of the spectrum, whatever that spectrum is, I can't pull it up, but I can follow up with the email on that.
Okay. All that is basically how much of the sun rays is
Right.
let in. If you're saying next
it
to the
allow-
window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it basically, is it gonna heat up the inside of your house during the summer, or is it gonna keep that heat out
Right.
to help cool the building? And these are very efficient in doing that, keeping the sun's heat out, which is kind of a two-edged sword, because in the winter you'd think that you'd want that, but it also works from the inside out, so
Right.
when you talk to the U factor, it's gonna keep that heat in the winter as well, so. Yeah, so it's a very efficient window system that way. Other than that, just working through the specs. They're getting ready for bids, and I'm hoping to have bids for April.
Okay.
Hopefully get them approved by the full board in April.
Would they do anything this summer,
That,
actual?
as talking through with their industry partners and everything that they do, that seems to be getting less and less likely. They're still having those conversations when we have the walkthrough. There will be a mandatory walkthrough for contractors, so we know who's bidding. You know, that will obviously be part of the conversation that day too, I'm sure. But if I was a betting man, I think that the likeliness of getting anything substantial done this summer is pretty low. And at that point, we might as well try and do it all at once and find some efficiencies that way, but.
But it should all be ready to go the following
Yeah.
summer.
Yep.
I'm going to ask the obvious question, but I hate to assume. These are all commercial windows,
Yep.
standard, right? Not residential?
No.
Okay.
no. Correct.
Okay. Do you guys have anything else? Will you have this available at the board meeting?
You want it on the agenda, or?
Well, I'll give an update, but if anybody wants to see the photos, could you have it
I can have them on, but again.
available if they
don't
so ask?
See that top, it says protected, and I can't.
Okay, yeah,
Ray doesn't let me play with their files.
Yeah.
For good reason.
okay. But just in case somebody asks questions
Yeah.
and they want to have more information, I would have it available, I guess.
Yep.
So, yeah, okay. Well, I'll just give the update.
Okay.
So, okay. Well, moving on, the next committee, Building and Grounds Committee meeting will be March 13th at 6 PM. And with that, we'll adjourn.
For one word.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. If everyone could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mary Kay, if you could take roll call, please.
Kristen Mattmiller,
Here.
Angie Schreiber,
Here.
Trina Borneman,
Here.
Heidi Siebert,
Here.
Dr. Julie Sprague,
Here.
Danny Pyatt. Andy?
Is there any public comment? No? All right, then we'll get started with the vaping wand update.
Oh, I have enough for you to say. So it was requested at the last board meeting to have an update on whether or not we thought that this would be a good idea, so Clint drafted, it's not a policy or guideline, it's more of an internal protocol. We still have work to do on the policy and how it aligns, but this is a draft. If you were to make a decision to get a wand, so you can read through this, it really has to do with regardless of the type of thing we use, it really falls under search and seizure. So this is just one tool that you might be able to use. So it's not going to change necessarily our policy, but when we update our board policy, it would include metal detector potentially. So Clint's here too if you have any questions about it. This is draft, so that if you have any input with regards to any changes or any questions you have, then we can take that back and.
I do have one question. Why is it only administrators will operate the handheld metal detectors?
Because we wanted to make sure that we limited the use of them to make sure our protocol for using them stays very tight.
Same with other staff members are not authorized to search students. There has to be an administrator or designee present, and we always advise 2 people present, so we have safeguards in place, because administrators are trained, so we just don't open that up to any staff.
Right. Yeah, I understand that, but I guess where I'm going with this is, what about coaches?
Typically, what would happen is if a coach has a reasonable suspicion, they would notify an administrator. Like even on game nights, there's always a game manager here.
But what if it's an away game?
Yeah, that wouldn't,
And our
We're
game
kind of-
managers aren't always administrators either, you know.
oh,
They-
true.
So we're kind of like tying hands, so to speak, at a certain point. So if only administrators can utilize this, and if it's needed in, for instance, an away game, then we don't have anybody that's accessible, right? So, so I guess I would like to see coaches, because coaches can be trained, and they should be trained.
What
Well,
would be the
then-
difference between that and just a regular search that they would do now?
Well, I think they should be able to do searches now. Coaches should be able to.
You have to be very careful with regards to the Fourth Amendment, because students still have rights as well, and so.
I'm aware.
So we are going to follow, board policy also dictates who should and shouldn't be able to do searches and seizures, and the types of search and seizures that you can have, whether it's an administrative random or whether it's a reasonable suspicion. And so we do not want to open ourselves up. I'm just advising you that we don't want to open ourselves up to
Having more
outside of
authority.
that, absolutely.
So what you're talking about is actually a policy not related to the metal detector necessarily.
Both. Yes, and I think our other policies should be updated as well, but I just don't want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Hamstrung? By only limiting this to being able to be used by administrators. I see your point in that you don't want everybody, and I agree with that, totally agree with that, but I think that we should also open that to certain personnel that we can train, such as coaches or.
So a good example might be if the principals are at a conference, let's say.
Yeah.
So there's a
Yep.
teacher in charge, certainly Kyle Schilling, and if it is something that is not an immediate safety concern, it can wait too.
Well-
Because we don't have an administrator accessible every minute.
Right.
So
Right.
this is really targeting the vaping in the restroom issue, correct? Like that's really what we're trying to get a handle on by having these metal detectors?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So I hear, I
And
hear what
we
you.
looked at 5771, search and seizure, when we looked at modifying this. I stole it from another district, and we met and modified some things on it. But in that search and seizure policy, it says the board directs that searches may be conducted conducted by the district administrator, building principals, or assistant principals. So administrators, so we just kept that language consistent.
And Neola is coming out with another update, and that doesn't change in that one. So it's not like there's any new information or new policy out there that's going to change that
For search and
for search
seizure.
and seizure, for changing language like that. So it just hasn't been reviewed yet, but we need to review it. At some, I mean, I think it's the next iteration you said, which I have and looked at and compared it to our current policy.
So, is the concern like they're at an away game and they think an athlete had a vape and they can't do anything about it?
Yes.
So, I mean, coaches have some leeway. They can also bring it back to the athletic director, and really, we just need a preponderance of evidence as a school. So if you
How
can
do you
say.
find that?
What?
How do you find the preponderance of evidence then?
So if you're a coach and you
Yeah.
had two players, one player, a parent come to you and say, I saw this, you have one or two eyewitnesses, it's not a court of law. Yeah, that's your.
Okay.
So, I mean, then you can come back and then you look at your athletic code, you talk to the player.
And you can ask for it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't
Yeah, the
have
coach
to-
can flat out say-
Searching is a last, we always ask first, always. And
And
searching would be a second resort.
correct me if I'm wrong, our current policy now states that the athletic director could be called to meet the bus here from an away game if a search was deemed necessary, correct?
It does not specify athletic director.
Okay.
But if it's at the level where you're like, it needs to be handled immediately, I mean, they can always contact law enforcement. Like, if that needs to be handled immediately, right now, for whatever reason. And
Or right, if it's drugs, I think that's a whole different ballgame, but I'm saying like the vaping. If we're trying to get a hold of the vaping, I think we need to give our administrators, our coaches, the tools necessary to actually, and teeth to actually do something about it instead of saying, kind of appeasing.
I'm not talking about appeasing,
Yeah.
Angie, I'm just telling you, like,
Yeah, I know,
the way to
but-
do it without getting sued.
Yeah.
I don't think we would get sued.
No, when we look at that, opening that up, that's exactly why what Trina just stated is about just legal and case precedent and what the lawyers say. Because I listened very intently when they were talking about search and seizure at a conference that I went to last week. It was pretty specific.
Did they have an attorney there?
Yeah.
Is that who, and that's the panel, like who,
Yeah, it was Boardman
Covered
Clark.
Was there
who you were there?
3?
Yeah, 3 of them from Boardman Clark went over.
Okay.
And pretty in-depth. Even with the wand, they said, you have to have reasonable suspicion before you can even wand a student. So
Yep.
it's like, the example they gave was, your vape sensor in the bathroom goes off, you see how many students are in there, if you have a reasonable suspicion of which one it could be, if another student says it was this guy or this girl, then you can wand them. And if the wand beeps, and if the sensor went off, and you have an eyewitness, that's your evidence, you don't even need the vape. Like, that's where you can discipline it. But you have to be very careful with the new case law that's out there. Because, I mean, districts are being sued. So, I mean, I get that, you may never think it's gonna happen, but they are being sued. So that's why they were very specific on who would be doing that. But again, we can take it to the board, and if they wanna open it up, then we can vote on that.
I also think we should, if we do that, we should see what our attorney, because he's the one that's gonna be
Right?
defending us if we get sued. And we should see where his perspective is on.
Because it does come back down to students' Fourth Amendment rights, and some parents are more knowledgeable about that stuff than the other, but we really have to make sure we're protecting all of them and ourselves for that liability part.
And I can share one of the case law articles out of Texas that I shared with Clint as well, that shares about just the use of metal detectors for safety. And that's really what we're talking about. Like, if we're truly looking at it from a safety perspective, metal detectors are for guns. I mean, it happens to be able to detect vaping because they're made out of metal. But the whole point is about school safety and whether or not that even metal detectors have an impact on school safety at all. Even the metal detectors that in Chicago schools where everybody walks through a metal detector, or wherever that might be. So, like, if we just look at it, like I said at the beginning, this is another tool that we use, not as another, it's not a separate, it's a tool to support, so you don't have to touch kids, it shouldn't be touching kids, and
Right.
it's not a magical device or anything like that, so.
So last time we talked about this, it seemed that I got the impression that we didn't have the resources to help solve the problem, just because we would get someone said there would be someone vaping, and now what do we do next? We don't have the resources to solve the problem. Is this going to help solve the problem?
I would say yes.
Okay.
And it also makes it much more respectful to the student and less litigious for the administration doing the searches, because I didn't touch any kids before, but my search was, do you have anything on you? No. Please empty your pockets. Do you have anything in your locker? No. Sometimes we'd search the locker, sometimes we wouldn't, depending on if we deemed it reasonable suspicion or not, because that's the threshold we need to meet. But I just think it would make it safer.
Okay. Let's take it to the board then.
Have you even looked have we looked at cost of these?
Between $130 and $160. I have a picture of the one that I was looking at, and then I took a picture of one that another district has just purchased.
Yes, Jill?
Could I address the administration, just give feedback on where this came from, and the information you gathered to this point? I don't know if that was shared much in the last meeting, and what brought the one discussion here. Mr. Rogers, if you wanted to share if there's any feedback from Officer Schilling and his perspective of the benefits it would provide to address the vaping issue at school?
Yeah, that's kind of where it started, on a brainstorm with Officer Schilling, and then in some communication with other districts. Wasn't there a poll that asked how many, in a room of assistant principals, they polled the audience in terms of how many used wands, and it was about a third-ish? Correct. But definitely more were considering that. So that idea just kind of spiraled from there, because the whole searching kids and not touching them, and then there was several instances where kids had certain things hidden in places that were...
They're not hiding them all in their pockets, let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Thank you.
So when you say empty your pockets, they could.
They could,
empty
because
their
that's not
pockets.
where they're keeping them.
Right.
Yep.
Kids are smart.
So how close do you have to get for it to detect metal?
I'd say a couple of inches, you know. It's got to be fairly close, but it's still not, no contact. So no contact is much better for both of these, in my opinion.
Well, and to be clear, we're not in the habit of physically
Correct.
searching anyway, so I don't want you to think that we are.
Well, and even Kyle.
Right, even Officer Schilling.
But Kyle is a different threshold there.
Yep.
No, I'm
He's got-
saying even he won't, like even,
Oh,
there's
Right,
all the
unless,
time.
unless he
Right.
has specific
Yes.
probable cause, which is
Exactly.
much tougher to
Yes.
prove
yes.
than reasonable suspicion.
Reasonable suspicion, right, is the first level. Yep.
But we do have to, just as we move forward to, if this is the decision that we're going to do this, is within our student handbook, it needs to be more clear. We have search and seizure covered under property, but it doesn't really cover search and seizure of person, as I was reviewing it. So we definitely, not just because of the vape wand, just search and seizure of person being spelled out in there, so, and what that would look like.
If we got these, how many would we get with, would it be one at the middle school or?
She didn't want one, but maybe you've changed your mind.
What'd you say?
You said when we talked about it, you had no interest in getting a wand at the middle school, but maybe you will change your mind.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of it, but you know. There's a problem with vape at the middle school too. It's not like it's not, they're a little more, not intelligent.
Not developmental yet.
But there are times like we were not searching them. Do they probably have it in places? Yep. Would the wand probably help? Probably. Do I want that to be the main thing about our school? No. But
Well, I'm just thinking
yes, if we have a concern.
if in middle school they learned that this is
I
something,
can't hear you.
in middle school they learned that, oh yeah, this is something that could happen to me, and get searched with the wand and they'd find this, then maybe that would be somewhat of a deterrent when they reached high school. But
For
they probably
some,
figured it out pretty quick at
For
high
some,
school,
it will
right?
deter them.
Yeah.
For some.
I would venture to guess that you likely take a lot of reports about vapes routinely. I know it's commonly shared by staff at the high school and students that they're reporting and they can't, nothing's being done, or it continues to happen, they're not seeing anything, but there's that barrier of actually
Because
locating the item.
yeah, they could be
Yeah.
having it somewhere where we're just not going.
It seems like it's more of an issue at the high school level than versus the middle school level. Not saying it's not happening there, but has more attention at the high school.
Well, if we can, like Andy said, deter it at a younger age and cut that pattern, that habit off earlier, I think that would be in the students' and district's best interest.
Like Trina said, though, the wand in and of itself and fighting it does not mean that a student can't be held accountable for what they're doing if there's reasonable suspicion. It's not like they don't get in trouble if they don't find it, if somebody saw them.
You can't do anything if
Yeah.
She's saying is if you have enough evidence to say that, you could. I mean, if that's a choice that you made.
They're gonna say, no, I didn't.
So one of the examples, so Jefferson School District has these, and they were talking about them last week, right? So the example that they gave is they have the Verkada vape sensors in their bathroom. The vape sensor goes off, pull the kid out, pockets, shoes, hood. Oh, you have nothing, great. And then you wand them, and the wand goes off, even if they don't give it to you. Vape sensor went off, the wand went off, preponderance.
Yes.
So like that,
Yep.
But I can't say, oh, you said Matt was smoking a vape, so now we can do something different.
Not based on just one person's
Yeah.
hearsay, is what I mean.
right,
Okay.
if it was, I mean, there's lots of different idiosyncrasies, but, yeah.
And then I think we have to look at our policy if that vape detector or that wand is going off and they're refusing to empty out or give that, then we can refer to our policy instead of saying you're automatically get cited for having a vape. So
And that's
And
what's
it might not have to be that, right? It could-
Correct.
It could be, well, you are refusing to follow
That's in
directions.
here too.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that would be a district that would be sure I'm willing to say what they've been doing.
Yeah. Because if I'm thinking of the same district, I think they were pretty
Oh, yeah.
happy that they had it, because they saw a drastic reduction of the number of vaping incidents that they had.
So do you think you would need one or two?
We could get by with one, but yeah, I think we could get by with one.
One of my greatest regrets is how much time all of that takes away from student learning. If they're even not in class, but they're in the bathroom vaping, and then your time to investigate, and it's such a focal point. So if it expedites that, if it saves anybody time and gets kids back in class and allows you to also focus on student learning, then, I would be for it. But again, the probable cause doesn't change we have that still in place. And the data that you shared, earlier this fall, the number of vaping instances and the number who had been more than once. I know we have to catch them, and we don't catch everybody, so I know it happens more than that data.
The investigations are the time.
Oh,
And it's usually
just-
around less than 15 kids total, and when you have the multiple offense kids.
Yeah, so I would be in favor of that. Anything that allows us to get back to the business of schools.
And if they're $150,
Yeah.
it's metal detector, if we would ever need a metal detector for a safety issue even,
Yep.
because Officer Schilling isn't around or for whatever reason, $150 investment in safety is not.
Agreed.
I mean, you're gonna want one kid, and they're all gonna be on notice. And even if that just makes a stance against, like, whatever you thought you needed to have in your pocket, it's not welcome here. Whether it's the pocket knife you forgot about or whatever, like, it's cheap safety investment.
Good point.
Do we have detectors in the bathrooms now?
No,
No, those were more expensive.
they're pretty pricey. The feedback, I've talked to several districts that have them, and it's pretty mixed on the reviews right now, I would say, just from the people I've talked to. That one district was very pro vape detector in the bathroom. There's another one that doesn't even have them on right now because they were getting a whole bunch of false readings and things like that. We did talk with a rep from the company on one, but they're expensive.
I know one district, larger district that's put in 4 separate bathrooms and then they put multiple detection, I think like 3 in one bathroom because they were large bathrooms. And they also had a camera system because by the time administration got down to see who it was very difficult to catch. And leaving, so they installed a camera system and that was like $8,000 to $10,000 for those 4 bathrooms.
Cost benefit then.
Camera's not in the bathroom.
No, you can't have them.
On the way out.
I'm clarifying.
On the way out.
Geez,
so when the
thanks
alarm-
for telling me that.
When the alarm went off, it kept the students leaving,
Right.
so they could easily identify the
Okay.
students.
Like timestamp it.
Correct. Because that was the difficulty they had. They get it, they have to go to the other end of the building, by the time they get down there, now they're going back through the cameras, and it was just very difficult with the time, correct, to notify and find out who those students were. So it was around $8 to $10,000 for those 4 bathrooms with those cameras. And they did all the wiring, their custodial staff, and so I'm imagining it would be more if they didn't do the wiring.
Did they say how many years that was for?
I think they recently put them in, so I'm not sure how long they were gonna last. But like Mr. Rogers said, there was a lot of mixed reviews and a lot of false readings, I guess you could say. Some people had good things to say and some people didn't.
And I feel like the reports come in regularly.
Correct.
You just have human reporters instead of censors.
Yes.
Are there any areas in the school where we are seeing fights more frequently? Like, is there like a hot spot?
Bathrooms.
Because there's no cameras.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the kids
What,
know
there's
there's
no cameras in our
cameras.
bathrooms?
Well, let's start there.
They fight there too. They know, they're smart.
Did you say only 2?
So a quote that I recently got was for 2 of them, it was $1,600 for 5 years. But it did humidity, vape, noise, and like 3 other things.
And that's just for the camera,
No, it was just for the sensor.
or just for the sensor?
Yeah.
Sorry, not cameras, sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't for the one that had the camera that is attached to it. It was just the sensor, but 2 of them. So I don't know. There's good and there's bad. There's bad with all of them, I think.
So
And
in that case, the sensor would go off and somebody would have to go down to the bathroom to investigate.
Yeah, well, yeah, it sends you an alert when it goes off. You set it to whatever you want it to be, and then it sends you an alert. You can either do it through the app or email or whatnot. What I like about it is the noise feature, because I can't go in a boys' bathroom. And so if there's gonna be a fight in the boys' bathroom, I'm gonna know about it because it's gonna go right to my phone. So that's what we were looking at it for, because it ended up being about $200 a year. So, but, I mean, you guys have a mixed group right there, so it's a little different. And all the companies are a little bit different.
So it could be brought back perhaps at a later time if a sensor would be an appropriate thing to maybe add with additional reviews and more information.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on this?
We are applying for an AODA grant, so, and that would provide us with not only funds for AODA education, but support from external experts that will support in our coming up with a K-12 plan, not just high school. Because that's where it's gotta be, gotta have kind of the continuum of
Why are we?
intervention.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we will take that forward and move on to approval of summer responsive classroom training.
If I could clarify, so you do want full board approval to buy the?
We don't need it, do we? You can
Yeah.
just do that?
We don't.
So then,
I thought you do because it's
So-
financial.
it's not
No,
enough
what's our
to
threshold?
matter.
10,000?
Yeah,
Oh.
so you can just do it.
And no, we don't want to buy hundreds of them.
But, so we can just go forward with purchasing and
Yeah.
Out of the high school
carry
budget.
on. Right out of
knew
Clint's
you were
bank
gonna-
account.
Okay, so how many are we buying then? Are we just buying one? Because I'd like to see one. You just want one?
yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Just start, and then if we see a need, we can always purchase another one.
Would you like one?
I will take one.
Handing out wands.
Twist your ends.
Well, it's just, it is kind of awkward. I mean, like, you know the kid probably has it, but you're not gonna go any deeper with anything. And we really, sure you guys contact the parents too.
That
And
also
like
can help
Trina
you,
said, you're gonna do one kid and that's gonna be,
that helps you be able to fall back and say, you know, if you use it, you can fall back on the school policy saying,
Well,
school
and
policy
if they have it up here,
says.
and if we don't have it there, that word gets out. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
exchanging going on in these buses too.
Yes.
Like, that's probably the number one concern that we have.
So we're gonna have one for the middle school, one for the high school then. Okay.
So you ready for the next?
we are ready for you, Heidi, you're up.
So we are bringing forward training that we'd like to do in responsive classroom this summer for all of our K-3 schools. Last year, as part of the school-based mental health grant, we had pilots at each, about 5 to 8 teachers from each building get trained. And they went to the training and they came back, and each school is implementing it a little bit different, but all of them have kind of and they can speak or answer questions if they want, different ways of how they are sharing that information. We did, so 5 staff were trained, as well as the principals were also trained. It's a 4-day training through Responsive. And then now they're supported from the principals. Lynn Walters, Jess Colby is kind of the lead to implement. We also did December PD sessions that were taught by teachers and was highly attended, and all of them were, well, when we got feedback, were teachers want more. They're doing a book study. I don't know if they've started on the power of words this spring. And positive feedback from staff that they want to move forward. That letter is just from Ashley Groans. She just wanted to write a letter We have some teachers here that can speak to it as well. And what this 32,900 is to get all of them to come on site. Responsive Classroom will be here on site to train the rest of our teachers in the elementary level. This would be paid for by 2 grants that we already have. Part of it from the school-based mental health grant because we had carryover from last year, so about 13,000 will be paid out of that. Then the rest would be paid for out of our Get Kids Ahead funds. That is a state funded grant that actually just got codified by the state to be in perpetuity. We get about $38,000 from that each year, so it's already basically paid for. We're bringing it to you because it's over that $10,000 threshold. The quote is in there, plus there's 2 videos, and I didn't know if you guys were able to watch them, so I don't know if you'd like to hear from the teachers first or the video, but how about I do this? I'm going to do the responsive classroom video. It's only about 1.5 minutes, just telling you what it is. And then I'll have the teachers that are here speak to it, because that's why they're here, and it's late, and they've had a long day. And then I'll let you see. The video is the video that we made. I had nothing to do with it, actually. But Jessica Colby took the lead because we had an opportunity to showcase around the state what we're doing with our work. And we were the first ones to apply for I think it's a $500 grant if we got our video in, and we were the first to get ours in to be showcased, and it's basically representing Responsive Classroom throughout the district, showing videos of students and pictures, and also our 7 Mindsets too, so just that, we wanted to attach that. But I will let you guys, hopefully we can get this. I'm not sure about sound. No?
I think it's on.
Or if it's just volume. It is, because it's up here. Your computer's running. Is it? Well, that might.
Jolie, go fix her, come on.
Practices that
Well,
they
let's
can use
start it
throughout the
over.
day.
Thank you. Sometimes it's just simple.
Good job.
Nice.
Every child deserves a warm, safe, and joyful learning environment, a place that supports them to take risks, to learn, and reach their full potential. That's the core principle of Responsive Classrooms, which is now used in classrooms and schools across the country. Responsive Classroom is not a separate curriculum. Instead, it's an approach to teaching. It offers educators practices that they can use throughout the day to expand children's learning and create positive communities, both in the classroom and throughout the school. Responsive classroom techniques don't end at the classroom door. They can be used to build a positive school culture as well. 2 major studies concluded that the responsive classroom approach increases student engagement, improves academic achievement, decreases discipline problems, and leads to more high-quality teaching.
Responsive Classroom has helped me to become a better teacher. I think it's totally changed
Sorry.
my approach to how I interact with them.
I noticed a change in my effectiveness as a teacher, the morning meeting and responsive classroom as a whole.
My favorite thing about the responsive classroom is that it works. I've seen it work as a classroom teacher. I've also seen it work as a building principal.
Everyone is invested in what we're doing for kids, and that's the power of school-wide responsive classroom.
So I know that Tricia is here, and Courtney is here, and Jenna. Jenna's,
I talked on it if I need to.
oh, okay, you don't really want to, okay. So I didn't know who was showing up. If anybody wants to speak to it, that's up to you.
So Tricia and I were talking this afternoon, and we didn't come up with like a spiel, if you will. We came more of like, what are the questions that you have? And we thought we could talk about like, well, I thought as I was rambling, like how it has changed our teaching and how we think if we have like all of elementary in this training and have them be trained, how it could change all of elementary. We would all be on the same page, and then it would make things easier for you two at the middle school.
Okay, hey. So I guess we're just going to speak to our own experience. So I was responsive classroom trained 16 years ago. I've been using it in my classroom for 16 years. I did get to go to the summer training, which is great. A refresher is always good because you forget things and you have to keep up on your practice. But I can tell you that my classroom operates very smoothly. There's a community in my classroom where kids care about each other and they want to do well, they want to challenge themselves, and it's a safe space for them. So really the basic principles of responsive classroom teaches you how to speak to children in a way to get them intrinsically motivated and to get them to take pride in their own work and what they're doing, and providing choice and active learning. Morning meeting and closing circle are all part of that, which we've already implemented.
For building that community.
For building that community, yes. And there's a lot of modeling and things. Mr. Mary was in my room today, and using classroom, the responsive classroom, there's very little wasted time. So, like, I've been in classrooms where, you know, you tell the kids to clean up and get ready for the next thing, and it takes 10 minutes. That's a lot of wasted time for academics. So my kids, I flip the slides, we have a little cleanup song, it's got a 2-minute timer, and in 2 minutes they are ready because they know what's coming next.
And if you hear it, you'll remember it for the rest of your
Like
life.
forever and ever. Yes, you're gonna sing that song, I hear it.
Yeah, I could sing it right now.
I know.
My kids sing it while they work.
They do, they like it. And so I shared that with Courtney, so now it's, and Tony Edge was here, and she used it too, so first grade was using it, second grade, third grade. You'd walk down the hall and you'd hear it.
Rings through more.
Yeah, it does ring through more. You know, but because everything is so routine and it was explicitly modeled and taught, which is all part of responsive classroom, we're a very well-oiled machine in my classroom. We know what's coming, we know what to do. I mean, down to, this is how we put a cap on a dry erase marker so that they don't dry out and we have to throw 20 of them away a week.
And we are now in third quarter and the kids are like, that didn't click. You need to click that marker. So it's still stuff that they remember because it was explicitly taught over and over until they were able to remember that routine.
And the community building is huge, especially in my room. I had a lot of behaviors at the beginning of the year. There was one week, I wrote up 47 minors for a week in my classroom. I have not written, I think I've written one in all of January and February, because we have gotten to the community point in our classroom where they correct each other, they help each other, and if something's not going right, it's solved very quickly. We have a community circle and we go, okay, we're having a problem, let's sit down, let's talk about it, and it gets solved very quickly, and we move on with our day. Instead of wasting half hour of our academic time trying to figure that out.
So it's helping the students make sure that they're using that time correctly, but it's also helping us as teachers. So right now we have the PBIS structure. So PBIS is our framework. But then we would bring in the responsive classroom, which is not necessarily for the kids, but it is. But it's more for us. So the responsive classroom is an evidence-based, research-based practice for us. It is to help us make sure that our teaching is to where it needs to be so the kids can get to where they need to be. And there's less wasted time of it academics. Like when Trisha brought me that cleanup song last year, let's just say we were not a well-oiled machine. And we still had our moments, but that cleanup song helped with the transitions and less time became wasted. So the responsive classroom is really helping us get it better with our practices. And it's helping us think more about how we talk to students, how we can get students motivated to do what they need to do because that's what they're supposed to do, instead of all these other, I should do this because they told me to. No, I'm doing this because this is what I'm supposed to do. And that, I did not have any prior responsive classroom teaching, and this is only my 4th year, and my first year was COVID. So it's been a whirlwind. And I think this is probably by far the best year I've ever had. And I would have to say it's because of responsive classroom. Because it got me thinking more about what to do. And now instead of only, I mean, at the beginning of the year, I always spend time building a community. That's what I spend most of my time with, but it wasn't always running as well as it is this year. because we practiced those interactive modeling, those shared, what, the shared thing? I don't know, there was a shared one. And like we practiced doing those things. She or he gave us examples of like what could be happening in your classroom, and we literally as adults had to sit there and model it how we would do it with other, what was I saying?
Sorry. Anyway,
Other people. Anyway,
it is like for the teachers, but it's
Yeah.
very student-centered. I
Yes.
want you to know that. Like, my classroom, I don't have solve problems anymore. They pretty much take care of it themselves. They like, unless it's something really big, they'll just kind of take care of it on their own because they are there for each other. They want to help each other, and it's a beautiful thing, you know?
yeah, and so right now with like that PBIS structure, we have that RTI pyramid. So with responsive classroom, if we can have the training across all the district, we can make sure that that bottom tier one, that universal where every student should be getting the same support, with having all of staff, elementary staff, trained in that responsive classroom, we would make sure that across all 3 schools, the students are getting the same universal support so that when they go to the middle school, there's not all these different loose ends. And we want like 80 to 90% on that tier 1. And every student will have access to that tier 1, how you're supposed to behave in school, how you're supposed to, like those expectations, those problem-solving skills, those routines. Every student will have that. And with that responsive classroom training, there will not be any like, well, one teacher did this there and another did this here. We're trying to get all onto one level so that the students have a general basis of what they should do in school when they go to the next school.
And then if we continue on with that, the next tier of the responsive classroom training focuses on specific behaviors for those tier 2 and tier 3 kids, which is another area we need to step up our game in a little bit, right? So, so that's the advanced training, is more focus on those higher need behaviors that we have.
And you only want like 20% of student population in there, and well, you know, and then you have that tier 3, but that's like the really intense population of students where you want to bring in outside sources like Compass Counseling and North Central Health and all those things. So just being able to get the responsive classroom training, that can make sure that we are complete, like doing our PBIS structure. We can make sure that we're living up to the RTI structure, the pyramid.
And we're providing equity for all students.
Yeah.
Julie, do we have the buy-in from the rest of the staff?
We do. Like Heidi said, when teachers offered, I would call them homegrown sessions, when we had PD, yeah, the response was really positive. Number 1, they love learning from each other. And number 2, like Heidi said, we'd like to learn more about this, those who weren't familiar.
It's a very social way of learning, which is totally kids these days. Like, they don't want to be isolated doing their own thing. They love to be social and learning together. So, I don't know. My closing circle today was, our reflection question was, what is something you learned today? And I think one of my kids said it perfectly. He said, I learned today that not everybody's perfect and it's okay. And I was like, you're right, not everybody's perfect, but we worked through it, didn't we? Yep. And that was like life lesson right there, right? Nobody's perfect.
And during these morning meetings and the closing circles, you really get to know the students. So you're able to have a better learning community, because when you have those relationships with the kids, that's the way to get the learning going. Like, I would have never known some of the stuff about my kids if I didn't have these morning meetings, because, and they really teach you morning meetings. So like the greeting and then the share and the activity. You get to know how the kids work as a team through the activities. You get to know how the kids follow directions during the greeting, and you really get to know just about the student during that share.
And you're doing that every day?
Yep.
Yep, so the first 20 minutes of the day is a morning
Maybe
meeting.
how your day goes.
Sometimes ours are half hour because we have some talkers. But also then at the end of the day, we have about 10 minutes for closing circle where we do a reflection question. We always start our day and end our day with some fun activity. So like today we did a game called Dragon's Head where they were like chasing, the head and the tail were chasing each other in the room. It was fun fun and crazy, and then we got our folders and we left, and they all leave with a smile on their face. They feel good leaving school. And then we start our day the same way, so they are happy to, start learning.
It's that soft start with the morning meeting, and it's that soft ending. You're not just like sending the kids off, and you know somebody had a bad day, but you're just sending them off. So you're really starting, you're getting the mood of the day in the morning, and you're understanding how we need to roll the next day with that closing circle.
So we have the training this summer. When is your expectation for full implementation? The reason I'm asking these questions is because I went to one of the breakout sessions I went to, this was what it was all about, and she was like 100% buy-in. If you do not have 100% buy-in, this is our district, this is your training, this is when you are going to have this is how your responsive classroom is going to run by this date, and after that, you and I are going to have a talk, because you have to, bottom tier, you have to have full buy-in.
And I'm just gonna comment, like, this is not like, it's hard to
It's
explain.
not gonna happen overnight.
It's not,
Right.
and you're not gonna implement every piece in 1 year, because you
Right.
go crazy.
But you have to have a plan.
Right.
And even
So-
the coaches or the presenters say, pick one thing and focus on it. Like, I had a really hard time with the teacher language. I will admit that. Like, I talk to kids how I talk to kids, like, because I am a child. In my mind, like, I talk to kids like we're, but I mean, I still gather that respect because I'm doing the things to show them that I respect them and all of that. And so I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on the morning meeting, and I'm focusing on that routine. Because, a new teacher, it's hard. Like, my first year, I didn't set routines every single day. I did not model those routines because I was the first year and I didn't have that. And now this year, like I said, it's one of my best years because every single day I was modeling exactly what those kids need to do. Something as simple, what we think is simple, of closing a marker. And so, like, it's not gonna happen overnight. And
Right, but
So the point that you're making is that, so this last year through the grant, the last 2 years was, when you look at implementation science, you're looking at it, okay, we're gonna toe dip the first year and we're going to train some people and we're gonna pilot. Now, depending on whether or not, because we need the support, we need the funds, then we also need to come up with an implementation plan through, let's say 3 years, 3 to 5 years implementation of anything, and utilize, not only pay teachers go do it, but how are we going to coach them? How are we going to support them as they set their goals, and it's not just about student outcomes, but implementation, because you can't judge outcomes if you don't have implementation. So absolutely, that's what we would do. And
Right.
because you have to have multi-year plans of,
Because there's tons of pieces. Like, I focus on the teacher language because that's just something I always catch myself doing. Just simple things like, I used to go, got it, thumbs up if you got it. Now, I never say that anymore. I say, what questions do you have? Because it invites them to ask questions. Oh, she wants questions, so I'm going to ask some clarifying questions. And my kids are really great at clarifying questions. Or even like, instead of saying, I'm so proud of you, that's great, that's a great compliment, but you should be really proud about how you decomposed that math problem today. That was so smart. Giving them, you should feel proud of that. You're not doing it for me, you're doing it for you.
Yeah, because like, for example, we started a new mindset today. It was attitude of gratitude. And the question was, what do you love about yourself? I had 4 kids out of my 14 that were there today answer. The rest of them couldn't. Meaning that they're having a hard time finding what they're proud about themselves. So like, responsive classroom really gets you telling them, like, you have so much to be proud of, and this is what, so working on that with the students, recognizing their skill set. Instead of I can recognize all the skill sets in all of my kids, but they have a hard time recognizing it. So getting like the responsive classroom teacher language can really help those students realize, okay, I am a good student, I want to be in school, I can do better.
And I think it makes us more reflective as educators. Like, I'll say something and I'll be like, oh wait, I should have said it that way, I should have said it this way. I'm constantly in my mind going, oh, I could have done that better. So the next time you do. And I just think that constant reflection, being aware of all of those things is really important too.
Angie, you had a question?
Yes, okay, so am I understanding this correctly? So as the kids come through the grades, right, they're learning the same routines. Is that correct?
Well, every
So-
classroom has their different routines, but you're.
That's what the end goal is, you know, like the cleanup every day.
Right.
all
Like,
that.
We're trying to take away that wasted time and get as much academic time in as we can.
I mean,
Okay.
and it's still it is gonna differ from class to class. I mean, we're completely different. Like, I've used, yeah. I mean, Trisha and I are very close and we work a lot together, but she's second grade, I'm third grade. I still do different things because my kids have a different, like.
But they
skill
can
level.
expect
Yeah.
the same thing as they
Right.
move through the grades, like at North Elementary, for
Yes.
example.
And the beautiful thing is, if you're a responsive classroom school, they're not, I don't have my kids and she has her kids, it's our kids.
Right.
Like, these are our kids, and it will be, if I see you not doing something in the hallway, or, you know, I could easily say, hey, what is the expectation at North Elementary, you know?
Sure. So we're giving them routine,
Yeah,
right?
and like what I'm thinking here, like, it will make transitioning from grade level to grade level easier, because, like you said, like, the classes will have similar routines, like, each class will still be different, but they'll still be like, okay, here are my expectations, this is what I need to do.
Right. And, which I understand that, but then what happens when they get up to the middle school? And I think that's where a lot of problems start coming in with kids, because then they go from the elementary scene to middle school scene where they have classes jumping from different classroom, different teachers. And I think a lot of kids struggle with that transition. Correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, do you see issues with that, with kids transitioning there? And how is that going to flow?
The goal for this, like, we wouldn't have full training, but like, I did have some teachers have some books, and you really need to have the fourth grade teachers need to have a really good understanding of what responsive classroom is. I'm not part of this training aspect, but like, it really needs to be, because that's their first entrance into the middle school.
So the goal.
And technically, it's for K through 12.
Well, it is, but the goal is that because we started at different levels, fourth grade would basically do the pilot next year, or if they want to have all the teachers, like what we did, have summer training, that's something we need to talk about, because this all, you have to start somewhere. We had middle school, some of them do the book study and learn some of the stuff, but they did not attend the training, so we would want some of those teachers to attend the training. We also, though, gets complicated depending on how our configuration is going to go down the road too, but as a 4-7 building and even 4-12, looking at restorative practices, so responsive classroom feeds into restorative practices and restorative learning, and so 6-7 was learning more restorative, 4-5, we want to be consistent within our building as well. And so it's going to come down to kind of what you were saying, Kristen, is getting together to talk about what our implementation is going to be, so that we build consistency through the district, whether it's responsive classroom, determining when. But again, those things aren't exactly the same, but they feed within, into each other and have similar structures, but based on the age and based on how we're moving, we have to make those decisions.
Restorative practices fits right in, that's my community circle, that's exactly what that is.
Absolutely,
I
it's
just
just
call it
about
something
age,
different.
and so it's, yeah.
And
so
the
it
other
really is
thing
having
is,
those
if
discussions.
the elementary schools all were to have the same training, then when they get to the middle school, they will have those expectations, creating an easier transition at the middle school. Which, and also the middle school, 4th and 5th grade, and you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't been in the middle school for a while, they are like a soft start too, because they don't go from teacher to teacher like 8th, 9th, 7th.
That was my next question, is what grade do they start going to the different teachers per grade?
For middle school, 4th and 5th grade, we have partner teachers now, so they
Okay.
do have 2 teachers, and they flip, we started that this year.
Okay.
But all of our school has a soft start, we have 15 minutes added, where everybody has a morning meeting, so we started that this year. We were not trained in it, we're not doing it perfect, but we have prompts, we're using that. Our 4th and 5th grade dabble with the closing circle. We haven't had any training in really any of this, so but we do see it's hard because you have to have, we're one building, so like we have to make sure that we're being responsive to who we are as well. So that's kind of what Heidi was saying, like we just had to make a decision, what are we gonna do this year? And we can't have half our staff doing one thing
Right.
and the other half doing the other. It's just too complicated for us, to be honest with you. So we decided to go with restorative practices, affective language, which is a lot of teacher language, so a lot of this does intertwine. But we have already recognized that our fourth grade teachers, we really want them to be more fluent with responsive classroom too, because that is a big step from that third grade to fourth grade, so.
And it's not a step that's taken lightly, like, it's a big thing each year, like, third grade and fourth grade really collaborate to make it happen.
And
So it's not.
if we can, if we need to talk more about how much more we want fourth grade, we can look at that with regards, this is just a quote for K-3, we can look at 6 more teachers and cost.
Yeah, you can't do everything either. I mean, there's a lot going on every day in our school district with all kinds of learning, so you have to make some decisions. When and how much, and who's gonna help everybody be accountable to these practices.
And that's where the implementation comes in, and supports that.
I also really think they speak for themselves, because once you start doing them, you'll see such a huge difference in your classroom, and you'll be like, oh yeah.
Well, the biggest, out of the PD day, the number one thing that came across from all the staff was the effective language. They want more, they want to practice, high school to, I mean, all of them. Was that yours?
Yeah.
Oh, nice job.
Okay. I have one last question.
It's about yeah, it's on, was it not on the quote? I think it's around, what is the
32.9.
How many teachers?
Oh, how many teachers?
30-ish? I feel like it was 30, because we had like 5 to 8 training for each one.
And we're talking about classroom teachers, because there's separate training for like specials teachers. There's like a one-day training for a specials teacher, and then there's like paraprofessional training, that's like a one-day training as well. And right now, this quote is just for classroom teachers.
I have one more question, Heidi, for you. When you were doing the videos that were showcased, were they showcased just around the state?
This was something that the Wish Center asked for submissions of work that districts are doing, and in each CISA, if you were the first one to apply or to make the video and send it in, then you got the $500 in kind, or what they call like basically an honorarium.
Okay.
And so they got it in, and they were the first one in CISA 9 to get it in. So.
And students that were in these videos, the parents were made
I'm not sure how
aware?
it's being. I'm not. We have video. We get, if they can't be, they would already have been pulled out of the pool.
Sign a document.
Yeah, so.
They don't want your student.
Okay, all right, okay.
And I think mine, I know like mine was videotaped, I don't think Jessica got too many faces.
No, they did. It was more, and honestly, I'm not even sure how far spread it's gonna be. It was just.
I think pretty much just DPI will see it. I don't think it's, like, I would have to look back at the email we sent, but I don't think it's something that they're showcasing all over. I think it's DPI.
Okay.
Pretty much, and,
Okay.
Anybody have anything else? No. Okay, we'll have to take that to the board then, Mary Kay. Quarter 2 behavior reports. Did we start with high school last time? I don't remember. Let's start with elementary this time then.
Oh, I see what you did, Donna.
So, Rachel is not able to be here tonight. Did you give them the printed document? No. So, Tom, Rachel, and I looked at the same data, and so we looked at percentage of students with 1 or less office referral. So North, for quarter 2, had 95% of students with 1 or less office referral. We had 0 in-school suspensions and 2 out-of-school suspensions. The reason for out-of-school suspensions at North were physical aggression, and in quarter 2, we had a total of 190 positives. So positive referrals for students. I can share West data. At West, they had 98% of students with one or less office referral, 0 in-school suspensions, and 2 out-of-school suspensions. Those out-of-school suspensions were for disruptive behavior, and they had a total of 165 positives.
Okay, East Elementary had 97% of students with one or less office referrals, 0 in-school suspensions, and 4 out-of-school suspensions. We have 29 positives currently. At East, we're working on the teacher language, and part of our, it's called the TFI review, it's part of our PBIS implementation. One of the areas that we're working on that we decided to set a goal for is positive descriptive language. So when we looked at our best data, that positive reinforcement tends to be common with almost every student. So we've developed accountability partners and providing time for teachers to visit each other's classroom for like a 15-minute time period and tallying the positive comments, positive descriptive comments. So like Tricia was explaining, it's more than just saying, great job. It's describing what the student did, maybe how they might feel about the progress they're making or the product they produced. So we're working on teacher language and trying to reinforce that. So that's our PBIS team determined whether or not we're going to emphasize sending home cards versus working on how we speak to students.
So some other universal and tiered supports, we did share with you from our Q1 report, but I wanted to reiterate, we are at all 3 elementary schools utilizing the behavior support system. So we have a system of support, so obviously supporting students at their tier 1, and then moving to the tier 2, which would be an SST, a student study team, and then if additional support is needed, we would move to a tier 3. All of our schools do have tier 1 and then tier 2 or tier 3 teams within our school, so different staff that might serve on those committees, looking at data, pulling either from EduClimber or from Infinite Campus or both, and really, I guess, zoning in on what is the tier 1. Is there a tier 1 problem? Like, are we seeing it on the playground that there's, physical aggression, and is it something that we need to reteach to the whole school? And then, is there specific students that might need more support, and that's more of the tier 2 or tier 3. All 3 elementary schools, we're utilizing the new SST form in EduClimber. So we've just started being trained in EduClimber this year, and our Q2, and I think that's across all the district actually, the SST forms we're utilizing for 2nd semester using EduClimber, elementary, all 3 elementaries are utilizing the SST form in EduClimber. Obviously, we're revising any behavior plans that need to occur, or functional behavioral assessments. Responsive classrooms plays a huge part in our behavior system of support for our students. We have a 7 mindset training, and the 7 mindset lessons, which is our social emotional learning curriculum. All of our buildings do have district PBIS staff members, so in addition to our building PBIS team, we also have staff members from each of our 3 elementaries that are on the district PBIS team. So we try to align and make sure that we're all doing similar things. We utilize our angel list, which each student meets with a school counselor, and it identifies if there are staff that they feel trust in that they can go to, and those are our angel lists. So those are students, those are their angels, people that they can go to, a trusted adult. And then, as Tom mentioned, the best interventions. When a student has the best intervention, assessment completed, the teacher completes that, and then it provides what the best interventions or the data for that student, and it identifies what, what types of interventions would be, aligned to that student, but we can look at it as an elementary school as well. And as Tom mentioned, praise is one of the top ones probably across the board for all students.
And something new this year, we're doing, I don't know if you had a chance to meet Lynn Walters yet, but she's been doing work with all the schools on alignment, on our practices with PBIS and behavior supports. And we just met with her at East today after school, and it was a really productive meeting. And it's nice that she is able to go to North, go to West, come to East. They're doing this at North, or they're doing this at West, and then kind of supporting the system. But, Courtney talked about those tiers of interventions, and what does that look like at each school, and trying to be consistent.
Anybody questions for elementary? Okay.
I know, shocker. Good.
High school.
I printed off
I'm going out, they
an
always go out.
update and compared it to quarter one, the data that we shared with you earlier. And what I want to draw your attention to is to some of the highlighted pieces on there. So on quarter one, we have highlighted no tardies recorded until day 9 of the semester, start of the semester, getting kids acclimated. So that's when we chose to start recording that. So when you look at quarter two and you see an increase in the negative referrals there, some of those are due to tardies being recorded starting from day 1 of the quarter. Those negative referrals came from 284 students, and I did not delineate in there students with 1 or less. You will see that information coming next for the next update. Because really that's a good threshold. You heard the elementary report on that, 1 or less. We reported any students who had a referral. So those 284 students, they could have received 1 referral or 11 referrals. When you go back, or you go down the list there, and you compare the 3rd row in that table, our attendance referrals went down, as well as the number of students receiving attendance referrals went down as well. There are some other areas that had increased, including our non-attendance and our ISS numbers, along with our OSS numbers. We had an increase, though, in the number of students that had not received a negative referral. You see in the second to last row there at 68%. We also had an increase in the number of students receiving a positive referral, 321 compared to 236. On the bottom there, you heard Tom talk about Lynn Walters, and we had talked with other members of different schools and solidifying some different thresholds and how that behavior thresholds and what we would do about those thresholds in using our behavior strategist, Mr. Sigmund, who serves AHS for 4 days a week with some specific interventions related to whatever those referrals come out to be.
To make sure I understand, Clint, what is the attendance versus non-attendance?
Okay, so when you add these two together, it should be the total number of referrals. So the 584 in quarter one are from referrals from attendance. And 217 students were responsible for those 584 referrals.
So on the quarter two, 193 students were responsible for 579 referrals specifically related to attendance. We included the attendance referrals in here because we track tardies, and if you get 3 tardies.
So they're tardies.
Well, once you get 3,
Yeah.
once you get 3 tardies, that, in the system, that triggers a
An
lunch
attendance
detention.
referral.
Yep.
Okay, and
Not
then
every time.
non-attendance would be a different behavior.
Yes.
Correct.
Got it, thank you.
So,
Other questions?
when you're saying attendance, are these kids that are found to be in the bathrooms fighting, vaping? Or why are they,
They're tardy to class.
they're just tardy to class? Okay, these are not the kids roaming the halls, these are, or they are, those included in this too?
Some of them could be,
Could be truant from school too,
Yep.
that's all lumped in there.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, if they receive a truancy notice, that is in here. Any attendance-related referral
Okay.
is included in that number.
And then how this is helpful as they move forward is why it's delineated between attendance and behavior. And then you look at the students that might have attendance and behavior, and those might be the kids that you're targeting. Those might be the kids you're talking about who are skipping class and they're doing another event. And just keep in mind too, this might be one kid who had one attendance related incident, and that's it. They might be stellar every other day. So this is just their first go at looking at it this way. They might set those thresholds, what he was talking about, differently to target different populations of kids, because an intervention for a kid who's just chronically not attending versus a kid who might have some behaviors and attendance might look different, that intervention, so.
Anybody have anything for high school? Okay, middle school.
Oh, I can just talk about it.
Okay. So it's term 2, we had 213 positive referrals. We had 428 students that did not have any referrals at all, and 112 had 1 or more referrals. So first term, we had 109, and second term, we had 112 that had 1 or more referrals. We had 42 students that had 3 or more referrals, and 12 students served in-school suspension, and 1 student had a repeated ISS. We had 3 students with out-of-school suspension term 2. First term, we had nobody out of school and nobody in school. But right when we hit that next threshold, November 7th, that's when it started going, which is kind of a natural. You have this like honeymoon period with your kids, obviously, in the fall. And then, so second term, it did jump up with that out-of-school and in-school suspension. The top incidents were defiance, disrespect, disruptive physical aggression, and inappropriate language. And we have quite a few resolutions that we use, and our top resolutions are conference with our student, parent contact, restorative meetings. So we do a lot of restorative meetings within a setting, either Teal or myself or our school counselors. Sometimes it's with a teacher, sometimes it's student to student. We pretty much make that one of the, you don't force the meeting, but we always talk about that if it is the right time and place. We have apology and think sheets that we use. And we did have some school community service by 4 of our students, so then we just have that happen during their lunch or recess. We have washing windows or taking care of some sweeping and things like that, so we were able to take care of that during the school day if that is something that needs to be done, be it for vandalism or something that was affected right at the school. The bathrooms tend to be one of those big areas of concern. So do you have any questions on those stats that I just gave?
So you have issues with language?
Inappropriate language.
Inappropriate language. So my question is not necessarily for you, but more for the elementaries. So are you seeing language as a problem in elementary? And if so, how are you handling that at the elementary level?
We do see behavior referrals for language. Am I seeing it as a major problem? No. Our top behavior incidents are physical aggression and disruptive and defiance. Those are our top. So language is not one of the top, but yes, we are seeing some. Your second question was, what is our response to it? So generally it is a conference with myself, a thing sheet about behavior, about how that made other people feel, is that respectful, and then a phone call home.
Okay. And how does the middle school respond to that?
Well, it starts with that, but if we have some repeat offenders, it turns into a police referral. We have Kyle, Officer Schilling, come over and meet with the student. We don't go to a citation right away, but I think we're at 2 or 3 citations right now because it's repeat offenses and you've gone through the situation and that's enough. And it depends upon the age of the student. Too, I mean, you weigh out that situation very delicately, and the family is always aware whenever there is any contact with our police liaison. We always make sure that they understand that this is the next step if this continues.
Right. Okay.
And Officer Schilling helps us debate if that's where we're at. Like, was it just saying the F word, or was it directed at specifically somebody? That's where the 3 citations that we're looking at right now, they were directed at a teacher.
Okay. Okay, because Mr. Rogers, correct me if I'm wrong, that issue also comes up in the high school with the language, and then, we don't want students getting up in teachers' faces and screaming at them and, and stuff like that, so we want to try to curb that at the youngest age possible. So, okay, thank you. I just wanted to know what the action steps everybody was taking, so thank you.
I can add in a little bit just about attendance, because we have done the same kind of attendance policy that the high school is, just to stay as close as we can coordinated with them. We just hadn't been tracking it in the referral system and Infinite Campus. But if we would add those in there, we would have had 64 for term 1 and down to 54 for term 2. So we went down that.
For tardies.
For tardies, yeah.
So you have to keep in mind too, we don't have a bell system at the middle school, because with our 4th and 5th graders, it doesn't help their learning if they're having a bell all the time. So what the teachers in 6th and 7th grade really want a bell, we're not having a bell. So what are we gonna do? They had to really take some ownership on what does that time look like, what clock are you using. All the clocks are a little bit different in all the schools. So pretty much in the morning, our students they stay in their area for their court. The minute 11 o'clock comes around, when we start going to lunch, that's when there's a lot more movement. And we tend to see kids coming back from specials, getting back to their core classroom. That is a concern. So we've had through these, keeping track of it, we've really had a lot of good conversations. Some students just need some help with getting organized, or maybe they need to be released like a minute early. But then there's some of these repeat offenders that are just lollygagging around, and it becomes a social affair. So I think the system is really, obviously it's decreased, so the word is out, the kids know that it's going to be consistent, and hopefully that'll help out at the high school too.
Thank you. Anybody? Okay.
I just wanted to, pretty much everything that Donna had shared, like with check-in, check-out, different systems. We have our tier 2 meetings and 3 meetings. Lynn Walters, who Heidi had referenced, and so did our elementary team, she also does help us out at 4th and 5th grade. And also, we had a meeting with middle school and high school, and we looked at the systems as well. So I really feel we've been able to make some headway on that this year. Just really thinking about not just the organizational, but they use the term operational. So like, who's going to get things ready and who's going to take it to that next step. So that's been really helpful. And then we meet with our North Central Healthcare and our wraparound services every other week. So I think we've seen some improvements, and just you can never have enough conversations with families. And I think that's something that we're always trying to improve too. How are we communicating often, early, trying to be as proactive as possible?
Can I make a comment? Mm-hmm. The middle school does a really good job too of preparing the students for their transition to the high school. Not just specific to behaviors, but it just prompted that thought, given we talked about transition from elementary to middle school. Behaviors, what are you seeing at this level on up? And so Ms. McCann does a great job in her building with addressing and following up on things to help students be prepared for that transition. And those conversations start already at this point in the school year for the students going into the high school, which I think is huge and a big support likely to the administration at the high school level, because they're trying to merge the expectation of what they'll experience next year and how it'll be different from what the middle school is to the high school, but in a soft, safe approach. So compliments on that.
Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, then we will adjourn. Our next meeting will be March 13th. Thank you, everyone.